Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome. If you notice a little sparseness of local devotees, there's a big retreat going on up in Sequoia National Park. And many of the devotees are up there. But we're trying to hold the fort down here. And thank you all for coming. My name is Dravida Dasa. I've been here for the last 5,000 years. No, for the last 35 years. And I don't wish that I was anywhere else. I think there's Radhagiri Hari, wonderful devotees, beautiful temple, wonderful opportunity to cultivate Krishna consciousness and spread Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna. So, today I am going to speak a little bit about one of my favorite verses of all time from the Bhagavad Gita. And if I just get this organized, forgive me for the delay. Okay. So we'll begin with obeisances to Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. And quite a few years ago I was inspired to put this into an English poem. Om, I bow to A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, whose mission is to teach the art of purely serving God. To Krishna no one on this earth can be more dear than he, for at Shri Krishna's lotus feet he dwells eternally. Obeisances to you, O prime disciple of your Lord, Sri Saraswati Thakur, wielder of the preaching sword. By preaching Lord Chaitanya's words, you saved the Western lands from voidism, impersonalist creeds, and all such shams. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. By the way, if you like, I wrote a bunch of poems about Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya and Krishna. And if you want them for free, just write me, dravida108@gmail. I'll send you a nice PDF with all my poetry. Okay, now, traditionally, Om Jnana Tivadandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So, I'd like to focus on one of my favorite verses from Bhagavad Gita, which we'll get to in a minute. But I kind of want to just give a little introduction of the form of what we're going to say. The special quality of human beings, as opposed to animals and lower species, is our higher intelligence. The Vedas enjoin that we should employ that intelligence by inquiring into the ultimate questions of life. And some of you may be familiar with the Vedanta Sutra. Vedanta means simply the ultimate knowledge. Veda anta, the end of knowledge. And Sutra means aphorisms, little sayings. So the very first Vedanta Sutra is Atato Brahma Jigyasa, which is more or less what I just wrote about here, that as human beings, we should inquire into the ultimate source of everything. How did everything we experience come into being? And how is the intricate, infinitely complicated world we live in going on so wonderfully? Why do we have to suffer in this world, sometimes grievously? Why can't we enjoy unlimited happiness forever? Is there a way to perfect our lives to achieve this goal? The Bhagavad Gita answers these questions and more. And I may say that all of the literatures that we have, the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, the Nectar of Devotion, which is Srila Prabhupada's translation of the classic Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by Srila Rupa Goswami, and all the other books that Srila Prabhupada wrote also answer these questions. They're based on the traditional Vedic teachings in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and other books. And we have those books in the store, and they're wonderful ways of finding out what's going on with this Hare Krishna. So, Here's one of the verses I promised that I would read. And this one, by the way, we have classes in Bhagavad Gita 3 times a week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, beginning at 7:15. If you can't make it personally, we have online through YouTube, you can watch it. And also there's a big archive of classes there also. At present, we've been through this Bhagavad Gita. I've been giving these classes since 1989. We've been through the Bhagavad Gita 5 or 6 times. Now we're in chapter 10, right after the 4 essential verses, 10, 8, 9, 10, and 11. And Arjuna is going to respond to Krishna. So it's a very wonderful part of the Bhagavad Gita. It's all wonderful. But here's this verse I promised you. This is where Krishna is speaking on karma yoga, action and Krishna consciousness. And he says to Arjuna, Yehi sangsparjaja boga dukkha yonaya evate adyantabanta konteya nateshu ramate buddhaha. An intelligent person does not take part in the pleasures which are due to the contact of the material senses with the sense objects. O son of Kunti, that's Arjuna. O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and they are the source of all miseries. And so the wise do not delight in them. So then the question may be asked, well, where are we going to find pleasure if we don't find it in sense pleasure? And the Krishna consciousness is meant to enlighten us with how we can experience spiritual pleasure, which ultimately is not tied to the physical body. The body is obviously very limited. It's limited by time, it's limited by our abilities to do anything. And ultimately, we don't belong in these physical bodies. This is the first teaching of Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna is paralyzed. You know, if anyone who reads the Bhagavad Gita and Mahabharata, the whole thing is culminating in this war called the Battle of Kurukshetra. It's really a big war for the earth, for the rule of the earth. Krishna is supporting Yudhishthira and his brothers, the Pandavas, who are righteousness personified, let's put it that way. But they're being challenged by their cousins who also want to get the kingdom. And so the whole thing comes to a head on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And believe it or not, the Bhagavad Gita is spoken right on that battlefield just before the war. Very dramatic. It wouldn't be the normal place you would think to have a spiritual discourse, but that's where it is. So, and Arjuna is the protagonist, if you will. You know, Krishna is, of course, the Lord. He's the center of everything. But he is the key to the victory of the Pandavas. They're the righteous brothers in this battle. He's a very experienced and powerful fighter, and Krishna is his best friend. He's the best friend of all of the Pandavas, but especially Arjuna. And Krishna has vowed, I'm not going to fight in this battle, you know. And Duryodhana, he gave Duryodhana and Arjuna the choice. You see, one can have my armies, thousands of soldiers and elephants and cavalry and everything, very powerful, and the other can have me, but I'm not going to fight. So Duryodhana said, well, what am I going to do with Krishna? I'll take the army. And Arjuna said, oh, that's a relief. I'll take you, Krishna. Just want to have you. So Arjuna had Krishna alone, and Duryodhana had all the armies. And then Arjuna wants to, just before the battle is about to take place, there are all these massed armies, and there's a no man's land between them, And so Arjuna asked Krishna. Krishna said, well, I'm not going to fight, so what do you want me to do? He said, oh, you just be my chariot driver. So Krishna's taken a very menial role. The chariot driver is the servant of the charioteer, of the chariot warrior. So Arjuna said, let me see who's going to fight. Take me between the two armies. So he takes it and he looks over there, and there is his beloved teacher, Dronacharya. He trained him in military arts, and his grandfather figure. The Pandavas were orphaned untimely. Their father Pandu died, and so they were just boys. So Bhishma Dev, he stepped in and he helped to raise them. His mother was there, 2 mothers actually. 2 of the brothers were born by Madri. So there's his beloved grandfather figure on the other side as a very great warrior, Bhishma Dev, and Dronacharya, who's his teacher. So he's looking, plus all his beloved cousin brothers, the Kurus. So he says, how can I fight? So he came up with all these arguments. He didn't want to fight because he felt that if he succeeded, the spoils that he won would be soaked with the blood of the people he loves. So where's the pleasure in that? I'd rather go off and become a beggar and just live in that way. So Krishna said, how is these pusillanimous emotions come upon you? Get up. That's not, you're an Aryan. Not an Aryan, but an Aryan. This is not a proper thing to do. People will think you left the battle out of cowardice, and they'll demean your name and all this. So he gives him this. So Arjuna is torn. Krishna wants him to fight, but he can't imagine killing his beloved grandfather and the others. So he sits down on the chariot, and he's paralyzed. He drops his bow, which is very significant for a Kshatriya. He drops the bow. And then he makes a very important decision. And this is something that we can also take a lesson from. Instead of arguing with Krishna as a friend, because he was his best friend, he says, now I'm going to surrender to you as a guru. Karpanya dosho pahata swabhava prichami tvam dharma sambuddha cheta yakshe yaksyan nishtitam bruhitan me shishyasteham shariman tvam papannam. So key phrase and the key word is a prapannam. He's surrendering. This is a word that means surrender to. So he says, due to this miserly weakness, I've lost my nature. Swabhava. Karpanidosho upahata swabhava. I can't fight anymore. I'm paralyzed. Swabhava prichami tvam dharma samudha cheta. I'm asking you now, what is my duty? I'm confused about what is my duty. Now in the Vedic culture, as anyone who's raised in it knows, dharma is a very essential element. And in fact, it comes up again and again in the Bhagavad Gita. If everyone knows one who was raised in an Indian family, you can all chant with me. Yada yada hi dharmasya glani bhavati bharata habhutanam dharmasya tadatmanam sajamyaham. Right? Don't you learn it from childhood? So that Krishna is explaining when he comes, why he comes. Whenever there is discrepancies in dharma in the world, and adharma, irreligion, has become ascendant, at that time I appear. And I protect the devotees, and I annihilate the miscreants who are spreading adharma, and I reestablish dharma. This is what he says in the 4th chapter. So Krishna has come in 5,000 years ago, and he's doing that. So Arjuna says, and so now please tell me for certain what's best for me. Now I surrender to you as a shishya. Now a shishya is a disciple, and it's based on the little root word shas, which is also the basis of shastra, scripture, shastra, weapon, and shishya, which means disciple. And all, what do they share in meaning? To be controlled. You be controlled by a weapon. You should willing to be controlled by shastra, so you follow that rule. Or you agree to be controlled by your spiritual master, by a guru. So Arjuna said, now I'm your shishya. We're not going to argue back and forth like friends, because Prabhupada said there's never any end to that. But shishya cannot argue with the guru. Who can argue with Krishna? So he says, now please instruct me. And what does he do, first of all? He chastises him. Ashochanam ashocastram pragyabharam shabashase gatasuna gatasamcham nanushonshanti pandita. You're lamenting for what is not worthy of grief. You're speaking in words like a pundit, but no pundit would lament for the body. And so what he does for the next 20 verses, he gives an essential lesson on the soul. This will be the first lesson. You're not the body. We're spirit, soul, the consciousness in the body. That makes all the difference. What's the difference? The consciousness is eternal. The body is temporary. Now what does that mean? It means we've lived before and we're going to live again. But in the human form, we have the intelligence by which we can learn how to act in this body in such a way that we have only one more death and no birth. We can break free of the round of birth and death, and as Prabhupada so immortally put it, go back home, back to Godhead. Don't we all want to go home after you leave this place? It's very nice you visited, but then let's go home, Mom. Okay. And you go home to a place that you're familiar with. But these homes here are also temporary, just like these physical homes. We want to go to that eternal home from which we came. This is another important point. So now I read that verse, and it's a key verse. It's in the 5th chapter. And what is Yehi Sang Sparjitaba? Sparsha means to touch. So we are part and parcel of Krishna. This is a very important point. It comes up in the Bhagavad Gita. Mamai vanksha. An angsha is a particle, or a good example is a drop of water from this ocean. If you get a drop or you get a thimbleful or a cup, that water will also be salty, right? And in minute degree, it'll have the chemicals in the rest of the ocean. Sun and the sun rays. There's so many millions of sun rays, right? There's photons coming down, and they give heat and light. But the big source of the heat and light is the sun. So we possess Krishna's qualities in a minute degree. And one of those qualities is free will. Krishna is the ultimate free will. Whatever he wills happens. We try to do like that, but sometimes it doesn't happen, right? So we have free will. We can choose. And the main choice that we made eons ago was to try to imitate Krishna, to try to be the enjoyer and the master of this world. But you can't be the enjoyer and master in the spiritual world. So that's why this world is created. This is the material world. It's temporary. Everything in it is temporary. The whole creation is temporary, ultimately. But in our own little lives, we experience that anxiety of being, seeing around us. You don't live. You have to live very long to see that people die in this world, right? I remember when the first person I knew died, my grandmother, and it was a shock. I was about 10 years old. You know, you don't know that happens. Well, we used to visit her once a week or so, and she was very intelligent and very sweet, you know. And then she was old, 70s, 80s, gone, you know. That was a shock to my little 10-year-old brain. But that's the nature of this world. And as Krishna says in the 13th chapter, he has a whole list of elements of knowledge that we should try to attain. The first is humility. Amaditvam. Realize, I don't know really what is good for my eternal life, my eternal happiness. So I need to search out that source of knowledge by which I can learn the truth and act in such a way to achieve perfection. That's the key. Srila Prabhupada came to America to give that knowledge, personally and through his books and through his devotees and like that. And it was quite a struggle. It's an amazing story. Can you imagine? You know, he was 69, not in the best of health, and he didn't go on a cruise ship. He didn't go on the Queen Mary, you know. He went on a cargo ship that had a little cabin, you know, so it wasn't made for passengers. And here's a 69-year-old man, you're getting seasick. He'd never been on a boat before. In fact, he had a heart attack, several heart attacks. And he said, if there's another one, I'm gone, you know. So he went to sleep. Krishna appeared in his dream. He says, don't worry, I'm going to take charge of the ship. And see, he's already just about to enter into the Atlantic Ocean for the last leg, you know, all the way from Calcutta around and up, you know. Took at least 2 months, I think. So now, what time of year was it? It was mid-September. I learned all the hurricane season when I was in Miami for 6 years. That's the middle of the hurricane season. And Atlantic Ocean, you know. It was smooth as ice. It was very, very calm, unusually calm. In fact, so much so that the captain's wife, she was also on the boat. She was joking with Prabhupada, can you please come back with us? Because that was the smoothest crossing we've ever had, you know. Anyway, the story is great. It's in a book called Prabhupada Lilamrita by a wonderful devotee named Satsuru Das Goswami. And it's quite a substantial book, but it's worth reading, the adventure. So why did Prabhupada do that? Well, first of all, he had the instruction of his own spiritual master to do it. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Prabhupada wrote his own pranam mantra. There was no one else to write the mantra back in 1966, you know, so he wrote it for himself. And he included the essential quality that he was manifesting, trying to save the Western lands by preaching the words of Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself, come 500 years ago in India to teach love of God by the simple and practical process in this age, chanting that wonderful mantra, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, the great mantra for deliverance. And that's how Prabhupada began his movement. He was preaching a little bit, but there were no books. He had the first canon of Bhagavatam. There were those books, and maybe some easy journeys, you know. But basically, it was Srila Prabhupada speaking from his Bhagavad Gita. He would translate in speech, and a lot of kirtan and prasadam. Prabhupada was a very, very good cook, and he caught attention that way. And it's a wonderful, and the whole purpose was to be a transparent medium for this knowledge that Krishna is giving in Bhagavad Gita. He was so happy when this unabridged Bhagavad Gita came out. It's an incredible story, which I won't tell now, how the Bhagavad Gita was printed. He had no money. Who were they going to approach? This printer, that printer, no one wanted to print it. But then Macmillan Company said, yes, we're looking for a Bhagavad Gita. You know, it was the 60s. It was the age of exploration, higher consciousness. You know what I'm talking about. So there was a market, and they probably work. So back to our theme here. So the idea is that when we come to this world, and we've all come, we forget everything about our life in the spiritual world. And in our human incarnations, we have, just like in the animals, we have senses, we have a mind, intelligence. But if we don't have the right association and the right source of knowledge, then we'll simply be absorbed in material things, relative happiness, you see. And that gives us a certain amount, depending on our circumstances and our karma, we'll have a certain amount of happiness, a certain amount of distress. But eventually, as we get older, you know, the happiness kind of wanes and the distress comes, because eventually disease and so many different things. And this is, the soul is not meant for that. And so it's a big shock. And then people you know are dying, and and eventually you're faced with that, and you leave your body. And according, the science is nicely expressed in the Bhagavad Gita. According to the most prominent thoughts that are dominant in your mind, yang vapi smarang bhavam chajachante kalevaram tam tamevaiti konteya sadatar bhava bhavitaha. It's a very simple verse. Whatever, yam means whatever is that prominent thought, which is after all the result of all of your thoughts during the lifetime, that will determine your next life, you see. And so in this Kali Yuga, you can go really down, we call it the rabbit hole, but it's worse than that. You can get so absorbed in different, you can become completely scared in your life. You can become totally enraged because you think someone is hurting you. These modes of nature are spoken of in the Bhagavad Gita. In other words, the last thing you're thinking about is God and Krishna and your relationship. You don't know. And we have maybe passed through that stage so many times and then lost the human life. It's not a permanent situation. You can lose the human form. But here's a very positive thought. Any exposure to Krishna consciousness, just come into here, many of you have come many times here, but if you first come here, you just open a book, you chanted one name, and then anything you have, it goes into your eternal bank account of Krishna consciousness, and you won't lose the human form of life. You'll be born again, and so you can take up, you did 1%, you can start at 2%, you see. But why prolong the agony? You see, if we study Srila Prabhupada's books, we learn the science, art and science of chanting Hare Krishna and the different processes of devotional service. This was all brought as part of the teachings of Lord Chaitanya when he came 535 years ago or so. He had the prime students of Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, and Rupa Goswami wrote this book called the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the ocean of the nectar of devotional love. And Prabhupada translated that in English. This is one of our main books. It tells you the steps of how to read, how you can take up Krishna consciousness and practice it, and the different rasas or relationships you can have with Krishna described. Very, very wonderful book. It's all available, So that, if you turn your attention to that and you become serious and you start to chant Hare Krishna, then Krishna from within your heart, he gives you inspiration to what to do and what not to do. You see? And this is how it works. So this verse that I chanted says, the sense pleasures, which is mostly what we know, and it could be subtle sense too. The mind is a sense. If you're sitting there watching a movie, or whatever it is, some mundane movie, your eyes and your ears are active, your other senses may not be active. But the mind is being filled with all these things, emotions are coming, it's an experience. It's an experience. And although there may be some pleasure there, it's temporary. And it goes into your thoughts, you see, and it'll have its effect when you leave your body. This is the science. So the idea in Krishna consciousness is to come to the point where you can start to taste that pleasure which doesn't end. And that's in the previous verse in the 5th chapter. He says, Bhayasparshesu asaktatma vindatyatmani yat sukham sab brahma yoga yuktatma sukham akshayam ashnute. Now just think of that phrase, that last phrase. Sukham akshayam ashnute. One can come to the point of enjoying ashnute, akshayam, unbreakable, sukha, happiness. Now isn't it worth investigating that? Because we know from experience that whatever happiness we experience in this life, it may be very intense, but then it ends. And you're left with the desire to do it again and again. And then oftentimes you can't do it again. And so you're just miserable. I can't enjoy, you know. You have to go to the psychologist. Psychology, Martin, is meant to bring you from the mode of ignorance, where you're just depressed, you don't want to do anything, you just want to sleep, maybe get intoxicated, to the mode of passion, where you're eager to enjoy your senses in life. Isn't that what the idea is? They don't even worry about coming to the mode of goodness. They'd rather come to the mode of... No, we want to come to the mode of pure goodness, in which we can experience more and more of our spiritual nature and more of Krishna's presence everywhere. And that is what Srila Prabhupada has given us. So this word, Bhayasparshesu asaktam, not trying to enjoy the externals of the senses with the sense, Bhayasparshesu asaktam. Vindadyatmani yat sukham. Now, Atmani, it's within us. There's a little pamphlet we have since time immemorial called The Reservoir of Pleasure. And it features one lecture Srila Prabhupada gave on one verse in the second chapter of the first canto. And it's all about, it begins with, the name of Krishna, what a wonderful sound, you know. And it's all about how when we hear the holy name, or any thing glorifying Krishna or describing Krishna, then Krishna within our heart becomes pleased, and he starts to purify our heart. This is what Lord Chaitanya's mission is, this chanting that we do. Chaito Darpana Marjanam. This is the first benefit. Cleansing the mirror of the mind so we can begin to see ourselves as we really are as spiritual beings. And it culminates in Anandam Buddhivardhanam, of unlimited pleasure, expansion of oceanic pleasure. Now this may sound like Pollyanna, or some pipe dream. But if you read the Chaitanya Charitamrita, you can read about Lord Chaitanya's life. And now in his kirtans and his devotees' kirtans, sometimes by the thousands at Rath Yatra. We just had a Rath Yatra in LA that was getting close to the original Rath Yatra. It was like thousands and thousands, most people who were ever there for Rath Yatra. But in Puri, Lord Chaitanya would go, literally they have 1 million people who come at least. And he showed the ecstasies, and by his association, his associates were experiencing it. Deep, unimaginable joy that's available there. And the wonderful thing is you have it within you always. We just have to learn how to contact it. You see, how to access it. And that's the science of bhakti is. Now I've been doing this for 51 years, you know, and I can honestly say, never a dull moment, you know. Even what's really miraculous, this mantra, which we're meant to chant seriously at least 16 rounds a day, this is Prabhupada's minimum. In India, it's 32 rounds, 64 rounds, you know, but here in America, it's not so possible. So, but even, you know, that's a solid 2-hour commitment to chanting on the beads. You've seen the devotees say, I didn't bring my beads, but we have our meditation beads. So there's these two kinds of chanting, which Lord Chaitanya showed himself, you know. There's one beautiful verse I'll share with you. You know, this is from a book of 100 verses that was written by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya about Lord Chaitanya. He knows all these things. Sushloka Shatakam. And one of the verses, this is the only one I memorized though, and he wrote them, he's such a great scholar, he just wrote them like that. You know how hard it is to just try to memorize one of these slokas, but you imagine writing them one after another. So this is it, and it's very relatable because it's exactly, you know, the Hare Krishna movement. Hare Krishna Rama Nama Gana Dana Karinim Shoka Moha Loba Tapa Sarva Vigna Nashinim Pada Padma Lubna Bhakta Vrinda Bhakti Dayinim Gauramotam Ashu Naumi Nama Sutra Dharinim. Now, that first line is incredible poetry. The Sanskrit, you can't find poetry like that. So, Hare Krishna Rama, that's the Holy Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna Rama, see? Nama is the name. Same in Sanskrit and English. You don't have to learn a new word. Nama, name. Hare Krishna Rama Nama, Gana, song, Dana, gift, Karanim. He made a gift of the song of the Hare Krishna mantra, a gift to the whole world, whoever would take it, you see? Hare Krishna Rama Nama Gana Dana Karanim. And those who accept that gift and chant the Hare Krishna mantra regularly, Shoka, Moha, Lobha, Tapa, Sabha Vignanashinim. They find their life, within their life is destroyed lamentation, illusion, Shoka, Moha, greed, which is one of the roots of destruction. Shoka, Moha, Lobha, Tapa, all austerities and suffering, all of these things are destroyed, you see? And then he says, Pada Padma Lubda, and for those devotees who are very eager to serve the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya, which we all can do simply by chanting and many other ways. Pada Padma Lubna Bhakta Vrinda Bhakti Dairam. To those bhaktas, to those devotees, he gives the highest manifestation of bhakti, you see. So then the last line, Sarvabhauma says, Nashinim Gaudamurtam Ashunami. I very quickly and enthusiastically glorify that golden avatar Lord Chaitanya, who is sitting in a secluded place chanting japa on a knotted string. They didn't have so many beads in those days, apparently. So that's what he would say. So he's showed by the chanting, the congregational chanting, especially at Ratha Yatra, but many other times. And he also taught to chant on the beads. So that's the basic teaching here. That's the process. You go to a yoga studio. I remember before I started this, I was a total atheist, and I went to Amala Bhakta's ashram. He wasn't called Amala Bhakta at that time. He's a wonderful sannyasi. He's still living. He's in the 90s up in LA. He made many recordings, English recordings of Shastra. Yes, you had them. And but he was a yoga teacher then. The Hatha yoga. It's just starting. This was back in '72. And I had a real serious bout with hepatitis. I was in the hospital and everything, and when I came out, I wanted to regain my health. And by that time, I'd been exposed a little bit about yoga and Ravi Shankar, in Indian. Let me try this. So what do I look at? The Yellow Pages. How many of you have heard of the Yellow Pages? Yeah, you can still, the older one. Now you look it up in your... But anyway, I took out the big Yellow Pages, and of course I was on Long Island, so I had to go to New York, and there he was in his yoga studio on the east side of Manhattan. I think he was called Shiva Prem Swami at that point. But anyway, he began teaching me, and he taught me my first Krishna mantra, although I don't know if he taught us what it means, but I learned later. How's it go? Apavitro pavitro va sarvavastam katopiya yaksmade punaninaksham sabhayabhyantaras shutihi. Which is chanted whenever there's an initiation, if you're ever present. The initiates, this is for purification. Whether purified or impurified, or having been through all situations, anyone who utters the name of Pundarikaksha, or remembers Pundarikaksha, the lotus-eyed Lord, becomes purified. So this is it's purified. Purified of what? All of this illusion, forgetfulness, envy of Krishna, all these negative things that you get purified of that, and you discover what you always had. This is what we all have within our heart, this prema, this love for Krishna, which is the most valuable thing in the whole universe. Love for Krishna. It includes liberation and everything else that you would want. So one of the teachings that he gave to Sanatana Goswami, another one of his main disciples, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabonoi Shobhanadi Shuddha Chitte Karayeyudoi. The eternal perfection of Krishna Prem, love for Krishna, which includes everyone else. You can love everyone and everything in the world, in the universe, if you love Krishna, because it's all Krishna's manifestation. He's there in the heart of every living being, Like we have sometimes, you wouldn't want to hurt a bug. It's summertime, so sometimes they get on this, whoa, wait a minute, let me get the bug. You get the bug, throw them out into the garden, You don't just willy-nilly, it's a living entity, you see. So that's Nitya Siddha Krishna means, so it's within the heart of everyone. When we purify our heart, chiefly by hearing and chanting the name of the Lord and the pastimes of the Lord and the qualities and everything, then that love naturally manifests, it awakens. So this is the answer to the question, what is this world all about? Why are we here? And how can we attain that state beyond all misery and simply enjoying eternally our original relationship with God, with Krishna? This is what real religion is. Yes, it can be corrupted. You can use religion to try to exploit people and become very rich. You know, I'm not going to name any names, but you know that's present right in here in these United States. And even many yogis and gods came over from India and said, I'm Bhagavan, you know. They even took the name Bhagavan. And they had followers, serious followers, but they came and they went. You know, they waned because they can't give the actual thing. But Prabhupada's movement is expanding all over the world. Even Ukraine, you know, the tragic situation going there, the devotees going through so much. But many devotees in the other countries nearby, they took them in, and you know, there's a tremendous fellowship. So, and this is available for everyone. This Bhagavad Gita is our main book, available. It's in many, many languages. And I had the good fortune of helping to produce this book and many others. That's what I've been doing for so many years, working on the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. So that's my little talk for tonight. If there's any discussion, it's again, we have classes in the evening, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And don't forget, we have something pretty new. Tuesday, Taco Tuesday. We're thinking of trying to start a Waffle Wednesday too. But Taco Tuesday, yeah, it's just like the Thursday night lounge, but without the lecture. You just have the kirtan, the prasadam, but you can talk, and then classes going on in here. And so people wander in, and they sit down, you know, and I get a big crowd, maybe 10, 12 people. But I know there's some out there online. Maybe, Hina, you saw some where you were? No? She was in Africa for a while, and UK, and Spain. So, any questions or comments? Yes, Diego.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol Prabhu.
So at the beginning of the talk, you're talking about Krishna having a conversation with Arjuna, right? So Arjuna doesn't want to fight his family, and is he talking about the attachment that he has with his family? And
it's basically right on the bodily platform. In other words, he's calculating from what we would call a mundane position, but it's very reasonable. In other words, he is showing what a pure soul he is, you know. But he has all of these familiar relationships and teacher and student relationships, and he doesn't want to ruin those. He doesn't want to destroy those. And this whole idea that what's the use of fighting this battle to win a kingdom, that's what the goal is, when it'll be soaked with the blood of the people I love. You know, I'll be more miserable then than I am now. Let me just go off to the forest and just live by begging, you know. But that's not going to work because he's by nature a Kshatriya. And the main thing is he knows that Krishna wants him to fight. And getting over his reticence or his reluctance to fight, which is based on a material consideration. And it's very interesting because he gives arguments from the Vedas. He says, look, if I fight in this battle and will kill all these men, you know, what will happen to their wives and, you know, their women? They'll all be unprotected, and then there'll be Varnasankara, there'll be unwanted, you know, children, and I'll be responsible. I'll go to hell, and I'll take everyone to hell with me. Heck with that, let me go off to the forest. So he was basing it on the Vedic teachings of the Karma Kanda section. But Krishna, he eventually said, Ashok, you're speaking learned word, but you're lamenting for what is not worthy of grief, which is this physical body. And then he has a whole lesson, 20 verses on the soul, in that second chapter, essential. And one of the ones that summarizes the whole thing is, Vijayate, Mriyate, Vakadachan, Nayam Bhutva, Bhavitava Nabuya, Ajo, Nitya, Shastrato, Yam Purano, Nahanyate, Hanyamane, Sharire. He says, for the soul, there is never birth nor death at any time. Has not come into being, they're not souls coming into being, they will not come into being in the future. We all exist as eternally as Krishna. Aja, Nitya, the third line is, Aja means unborn, eternal. And we're not slain when the body is slain. The body becomes slain somehow by a weapon or just by old age, disease. Eventually it's finished, right? No one can argue with that. But we don't die. You see? I came up with a little motto that you can take home with you. You can make a t-shirt with it, you can make as much profit as you want with it. Everybody dies. See, but you have to see, there's a space. Every body dies. Every single body dies. Every body dies. Nobody dies. Wake up and open your eyes. You're not that body, you're pure spirit soul. Chant the holy name and attain life's goal. That's like the summary of the Hare Krishna movement. You know? but it's true. But to understand that and live that is not so easy, because we're so conditioned and so accustomed to identifying with the body. You know, if the cop stops you, you went to a red light or a stop sign, what does he ask for? You know, license and registration. He wants to make sure that you're the person who's authorized to you know, drive this car. So what do you have on the license? There's a picture, right? There's your name. I think they have your birthday. I think they have your eye color. They have all these things that are pertaining to your body. And okay, now I know that that's really you. And that's who I usually identify. Who are you? Well, I'm such and such. I was born in this family. You know, this is my race. This is my religion, like that. But it's all temporary. So the whole idea is that we have to rise above the bodily platform, the bodily designation. That's our conditioned life. And to do that, we need to come in touch with Krishna. And the practical way of doing it in this age is through this sound. It's inconceivable how that sound, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna is non-different from his name. When you chant that name, you're actually in touch with God. And as soon as you do, the purification starts. You see. I'll tell you, you know, my own life. It's easy for me to... I was not a very happy boy, you know, when I grew up, especially because of the war in Vietnam. I had so many demonstrations, and then Nixon got elected. That was a real downer. You know, the war went on and on and on. So I went to college, but I didn't really study, because I said, well, I'm going to go to jail anyway. I'm going to turn my draft card in. You know, I became the underground man, Dostoevsky, you know. Existentialist. I was a total atheist. I always like to say, I was raised as a communist. Really, my father would read the Das Kapital to me every night. And he put it away in the closet. He was afraid the FBI would come and get it. So that's my mentality. Then, by Krishna's great mercy, I got that. I was living on the Lower East Side, 2 blocks from Tompkins Square Park. Yep, but I wasn't there for the, you know, the kirtans. Anyway, so I got really, really sick, and like I mentioned, and I was in the hospital for a month, you know, and I came out and I said, well, let me try this yoga. And that's where I first contacted, you know, he wasn't teaching Bhakti Yoga there, he was teaching Hatha Yoga. But at least I was into yoga and meditation, and I eventually got the Hare Krishna mantra, because the Brooklyn Temple was there. And I started chanting that. I was working at a hospital, and I didn't know what I was doing, so I was chanting. I wasn't really too trained up, but I tried to see if I could cure the patients with the mantra, you know. And anyway, but I was chanting. And that chanting kept bringing me back to the temple, And eventually I got a Krishna book, but that was too much for me, too much Leela. You know, I was too philosophical for that. But then when I got the TLC, the Teaching of Lord Chaitanya, that really struck me. And I started associating with the devotees, and eventually I said, I might as well join, you know. I just want to keep chanting Hare Krishna. Maybe there's something from previous life, you know, but whatever it was, I never looked back. And so that's what Srila Prabhupada came to give. He came to attract us with Krishna. Krishna is all attractive, and he himself, being a pure devotee, was attractive by his personality and by his words and certainly by his cooking and everything else. And so by that association with the pure devotee and the association with the name, which is Krishna himself, I became attracted to Krishna. And he's all attractive, you know. And you go to the temple in Radha Govinda, oh, you know, this is the temple in New York. They've been there for a long time now. Just the deities are, that's the whole point, is that these temples, this whole movement, is meant to give you ways, even in Kali Yugites, to become attracted to Krishna. And if you allow yourself, and you take it up seriously, you'll find that you're becoming more peaceful, you have a better outlook on life, It has many, material benefits, but most of all, it has the spiritual benefit of giving you a way to progress toward the ultimate goal of life. And even if you don't make it this life, you'll still have so many, you'll be able to continue next life. But why wait? Why prolong the agony? Why not make this our last life? It's not impossible. You just need to become serious about chanting and learn the do's and the don'ts of bhakti yoga. Like any process, any marga, any path you want to take. They have the Olympics going on now, you probably may have heard. And these are the people who really, really tried and trained so hard to become the expert runner or jumper or whatever it is, right? And so they had, anyway, there were so many things to do and so many things not to do. You can't stay out late and drink, with your friends all the time. You got to stay in shape, right? So many different things. Step this way, step that way, And finally, you can get the goal, the ultimate. Oh, I got the gold medal. My life is perfect. No, it's not. But it's a good example of how anything you want to achieve in life. What is all this? Go to college and everything. It's just get a different state so that you'll have a better life. But all the material things you can do, whether it's the Olympics or learn to be a doctor or whatever, is all temporary because it's tied to the body. And eventually you won't be a doctor anymore. You'll be a free-floating spirit soul onto your next body. And who knows, it may not even be human. So we had the human life. Now I'm going to end with this. There's maybe a couple of these verses. I think I gave a class on this. The boats, This human body is a boat that we can cross the ocean of birth and death. It's an ocean. Nirdeyam, this is spoken by Krishna. Nirdeyam adyam, sulabam sudurlabam, plabam sukalpam, gurukarnadaram, mayanukurena nabasviteritam, puman bababdim nataret sa atmaha. Very nice verse. Krishna doesn't mince words. So Nirdeyam means the human body. Adyam means it's a nicely appointed boat. It's full of all kinds of, to cross the ocean of birth and death. Sulabam, sudurlabam. Now this is a play on words because those are opposite words. How can something be sulabam and sudurlabam? You see? Sulabam means here you automatically get it. Isn't that's good? We're only going to keep coming back. If we lose the human form, we'll eventually come back again. But we're going to go through a lot of suffering to do that. But but it's sudurlabam. It's pretty rare to have human form. How there are 8 billion of us on the earth. I bet in Pacific Beach there are probably 8 billion termites. I have some termites in my, in other words, there's zillions and zillions of living entities who are working their way gradually up to human form. We are it. We won the lottery. Now let's cash in the ticket by becoming Krishna conscious. So he goes on. Sulabam sudurlabam, plabam, boat, sukalpam, nicely constructed, and there's a nice captain for the boat. We need a captain. Guru Karnadaram, the spiritual preceptor, is essential. See? And then what about the favorable winds? It's one of these sailboats. There's no motors on this boat, My anukulyena basvitan, my instructions from the Vedas and the Bhagavad Gita. This is the favorable wind. So you got the boat, you got the captain, you got the favorable winds. Puman, that person, bababdim, the ocean of birth and death. Nataret, does not cross over. Sa'atmaha, is virtual killer of his own soul. Of course, you can't kill your soul, but you can postpone the perfection for a long time. So therefore, let's take advantage of this boat, learn more, get one of Prabhupada's books. If this book is too big, we have thinner ones for you that I've worked on. They all have the same message and the teachings. And begin to practice. It's very easy. You can practice at home or just, press this button, that button. Our whole destiny is which button we press on our phones and our iPads, isn't it? You go this way, you go to that side. You go this way, you go to the Hare Krishna side. So these classes are available. So many beautiful kirtans, Janavi Harrison, so many others, available. Prabhupada, you can just key in Prabhupada kirtan and you get a whole bunch of kirtans of Prabhupada. So it's a two-edged sword. So that's the idea. I'm sorry if I didn't answer your question. I tried. Any other questions, comments? We went a little over, and so now we're going a little under. Oh yes, I wanted to share a couple of poems with you. I have a few other poems. Now this is the whole thing is the intelligence. This is what we have that the animals don't have, this special intelligence. What are we going to do with it? Are we going to put it in the service of our senses? Or are we going to control the lower self by the higher self? So Lord Chaitanya, he spoke this verse to Sanatana Goswami. Kama dinam katina katita palita dhuni deshas tesham jata maina karuna nattapano pashantihi utrijaitan adayadupate sampratam labna buddhis tvamayata ksharanam amayam mam diyug svatmadasye. Isn't Sanskrit a wonderful language? You can't do that in English. In how many ways have I sought to obey the seductive demands of my wicked desires? They've shown me no mercy, yet on I've gone shamelessly trying to quench lust's unquenchable fires. But now I'm rejecting these hellish desires, for my higher intelligence now has awoken. O Krishna, O shelter of fearlessness, please let me serve you with faith that will never be broken. And this is really the essence, to awaken that intelligence, so that we don't just go along with the demands of the mind and the senses, but we try to enlighten ourselves with the knowledge that's in Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, the books Srila Prabhupada gave us, and change the way we're living, you see. It's practical for us in this age. We can't go off to the forest and do Ashtanga yoga. You may try, and very few can do it, but it's not practical for the masses in this Kali Yuga. But this process of congregational chanting and associated with devotees, wonderful prasadam, that's part of it. It's Krishna's mercy. Prabhupada knew that for sure. And cultivating our natural attachment for Krishna, which is there. There's an ocean of love that we can experience if we do that. All right, I'll end there, and we'll have another short kirtan till 7:15. Oh wait, we have our announcements, and there are many announcements. Janmashtami, and Balaram's appearance day, Radhashtami, and Prabhupada's appearance. Go ahead. Okay.